Reverend John Burton Jr., the number one guy, the number one man. You are part of the 2021 Mental Health Summit at UNCC Charlotte. So can you tell people, number one, who you are, how this whole mental health awareness came about, and then just more of your background?
Sure. Well, you first of all, I want you to tell me how much I need to pay you for that wonderful introduction that you just gave. So just give me your Cash App, and now just put something in there just to say thank you for the wonderful introduction. But again, my name is John Burton Jr. I'm a jack of all trades, I would like to say. So I've been able to do a lot within my storied career. Mental health and communications and marketing and music and all those things have been a part of my wheelhouse for all of my life, for as long as I can remember. I would say initially I was bitten by the music bug. And then when I was in high school, I was bitten by the marketing bug. And you wouldn't think that you'd be bitten by the marketing bug in high school, but I remember taking marketing as one of my elective courses. And my DECA teacher was like, "You have a gift in this area." Who thinks that they have a gift in the area of marketing in high school? But I actually won an award when I was in high school for doing marketing. And so it was always in the back of my mind, but I always wanted to be on television. I always wanted to work, to be in front of the camera. So I went to college for communications and worked in television for a little while. I also worked in the radio for a little while. And then when I graduated, I worked at a local CBS affiliate. And then when I left the CBS affiliate, I started my own company doing marketing and PR and events and then consulting. And so, and then after that, I got involved with, when I was working in television, I got involved in the mental health psychology realm. So I wanted to go back to school and get my doctorate, but I was like, that's a long time to go back to school and get a doctorate. But I still maintain the desire to want to work so in the area of mental health. And so when I went to graduate school, I got bitten by the chaplaincy bug. And so I had the pleasure of being the assistant chaplain for the Los Angeles Clippers basketball team when I lived in LA. And so that's kind of how I got the whole idea of chaplaincy and working with mental health. And so that's where that came about. And so after that, I moved back to Charlotte and started working in ministry. And so that's kind of where I am. And then just on a chance occasion, the youth in my church, they really, for whatever reason, liked me. And they were like, "We want you to be our youth pastor." I don't have no kids. I know no is not professional English, but I'm just saying, just for the moment, I don't have no kids. My sister don't have no kids. And so I didn't want to be that dude, the corny guy, but somehow they loved me and they loved the work that I did. And if they selected me to be their youth and children's pastor, I said, I'm in. And so that's been the trajectory of my career, but I still have a passion for marketing, PR, mental health, and all things marketing.
All things marketing. So you work with some pretty amazing companies. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. I've been blessed to be able to work with so many people. When I got out of working in television, my first major client was Maggiano's restaurant. And so they were looking to do some segment marketing, and they wanted to delve into the African-American faith community. So I created a series of events for them called Soulful Sundays. So Soulful Sundays was a gospel brunch that we did every fifth Sunday for an entire year. And so that was their foray in trying to do some segmented marketing, especially within the African-American community. And I said, why not target the church? We are people who, we always go out to eat every Sunday right after church. And so why not tap into that community? And so it was a win-win for everyone. We got copious amounts of press because, I worked on my own press. And so we got copious amounts of press. We were able to broaden our horizons. We did different things every fifth Sunday. We did a fashion show one time. We did gospel jazz one time. We did a gospel Latin day. We did so many different things. We did poetry. We did so many different things throughout that facet. So they were very, very pleased with the partnership.
I like that. I mean, you're diverse, so you have a very broad perspective about certain things. I mean,
Yeah.
you could be deeply embedded with different people in the community, all walks of life. So that brings me to the 2021 Mental Health Summit at UNCC Charlotte,
Yeah.
and the thing that really jumped out at me is advancing equitable mental health outcomes for racially, ethnically diverse populations. So, who are we engaging, and who should be a part of that?
So right now, especially during the pandemic, mental health has been on the radar. It has especially been on the radar for African Americans. Mental health and mental illness has always been a taboo area, especially for the African American community.
Right.
Most of the time, we always swept it under the rug. We all know that we had that cousin or that uncle or that auntie that were just a little off. And so we never we didn't diagnose them medically, but we knew that there was something a little different about them.
Right.
Now we're getting to the point where we are calling out those illnesses and giving those illnesses a label and trying to seek help for those individuals. So long are those days to whereas we are just hiding them off somewhere. Now they really need to get the support and the medication that they need, and also the therapy. We have to get to the point where we are our own advocates and advocating for each other as well as our family members and friends. We have to get away from the taboo that we don't suffer with mental illness when many of us have and do, especially within the African American community. And then as it regards to youth and children are an area, they have been so underserved with in the area of mental health and mental illness that right now they really need it. They've been so isolated within their homes for the last year, especially within the school. They've been sequestered to a computer screen or a tablet screen or a phone screen, and they haven't had the social outlet. Within social outlets, there's also social media. Within social media, there's also cyberbullying.
Right.
You know, when we were growing up, the only bullying that would take place is in school and off the school bus. These kids nowadays, they're getting bullied 24 hours, 7 days a week, which allows them to continue to have and be antagonized by their worst critics. Right. It is so hard for people to understand the amount of stuff that these children are going through today. It's hard to fathom. But if you look at the statistics, suicide rates amongst children is going up so high. I was talking to a parent just last week saying how her child was bullied by another student, and her child is only 9 years old.
Wow.
I personally know someone, a really close friend of mine, his daughter tried to commit suicide at 10 years old in the bathroom at her school, all because people told her that they didn't like her because of the color of her skin. So she thought the best way to solve her own problem was to end her life at school.
So when you say that, and with the pandemic, what does the data suggest with the kids now? Because that's a different topic altogether from adults with mental health.
So as far as the kids are concerned, we need to be more concerned and look at the cues and ask them how they are feeling. Most of the time, if you are a parent, you're concerned with making sure they have a roof over their head, food on the table, and a place to lay their head.
Right.
Now they have to look at, how is my child feeling? Are they acting different today? Who are they hanging out with? How much screen time are they having? Why are they glued to the phone? Who are they talking to? Who are they interacting with? That is now a parent's additional responsibility outside of making sure that their child has all the needs met, because you have no idea who these kids are talking to.
Right.
And you need to be aware as a parent or as a guardian who these kids are talking to, because they're getting so many influences, not just from friends and classmates, but they're also getting influences from the music that they listen to and the shows that they watch and the social media that they have. So we need to be safeguards, allowing us to be able to look at their eye gates and their ear gates, because there's so much going on that these children are having to deal with at such an early age. Suicide at 10 years old, who would have ever thought that?
Right.
But that's an issue nowadays. You know, the fact that a child would even consider ending their life. Where did they get that narrative from?
Right.
That I can solve my problems by ending my own life. That's some serious mental illness. And not only does the child need assistance, the parents need assistance. And if the child has siblings, those siblings need assistance, because it's going to be a family issue and not just a single issue.
That's right. And not just, I mean, that bullying is number one. That's a major thing. We're talking about other kids. I remember when my daughter was a lot younger and she presented with issues. And they said, well, don't call them issues, but it is an issue that you cannot readily address because you don't know what's going on with your child. So she was, after going through the motions and going through psychologists, different counselors, I learned that she had oppositional defiance disorder. I also learned that really was they didn't know what was wrong with her. That's a crutch diagnosis when they can't really tell you what's going on with your child because it's too early to tell what's going on with your child. So now we've gotten a lot more advanced with getting to the root of the problems, especially when you're dealing with bullies. I'm not saying she was a bully, but there is other things going on with that child that needs to be addressed that wasn't before. So I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm glad that that's something that you're definitely working on. So with this event, this mental health event, parents should bring their children out, and then how will you engage that child?
So the piece that I'm doing, the youth piece, would be a virtual component. And so Benny, it will be a virtual component. Many kids have the opportunity to be able to attend. And so what we will do, we will have breakout sessions, and we will be able to allow the children to be able to talk about those things. There are certain things that your daughter will never tell you about,
right?
Regardless of how close your relationship is. But she will talk about it in a group of her peers, or maybe even in a group of strangers, because she needs to be able to have an outlet. This is a place for your child to be able to have a safe place to be able to share their issues, their struggles, and sometimes their concerns. And also for them, also to be a safe place where they can ask questions. A lot of times a child doesn't feel like they're being heard, and so they act out, or they have so many things that they do to try to cope with the issues that they can't understand. You think about all the issues that we deal with as adults and how we have different coping mechanisms. Oh, I'm going to go shopping. I'm going to go work out. I'm going to go out to eat. I'm going to do this. A child doesn't have that opportunity.
That's right.
And so they have to find new coping mechanisms to be able to resolve their issue. And so today, children just have it so hard, but we have to be so intentional about making sure that they are well mentally as well as socially. That's right. so they can be the best child that they be, because they don't need to grow up so early. That's right. They are maturing so fast because they have so many things that they're fast tracking to, that they aren't having time to be children. We're fast tracking them to be young adults so quickly, right, that they're involved in so many adult issues that it's just inundating them, that they're not having a chance to be a child. And so we want them to be able to hold on to their youth and their adolescence for as long as they can. They're going to have a whole lifetime to be an adult.
You got that right. But, I think one of the things that they said is social media traumatizes children in different ways, to where they can't express being traumatized when you have the shootings on social media, when you have all the fights. And it seems like it's entertaining, but it's traumatizing. And I'll tell you another thing. Ultimately, my daughter is much older now, but ultimately she was diagnosed with PTSD. That's totally different from oppositional defiance disorder. So when you get down to the meat of the problem, when you get down to, okay, what's causing these issues, is other things that's below the surface that, like you said, kids will never tell you these things are going on or has happened that caused this thing to grow inside of them. So with that,
I've had the opportunity to work in a mental health hospital. And that was one of the most enlightening experiences of my entire life. And to be able to see that there's so many people suffering from mental illness that began as a child.
Right.
The root began, the genesis of it began when they were a child. I remember talking to a patient, and the patient was saying they don't like to remember Christmas. What child doesn't like to remember Christmas? Right. They didn't like to remember Christmas because Christmas was a hard time for them. And so Christmas or anything associated with Christmas was a trigger. And so many of the things that we think that are endearing are triggers for some other people, or they cause them to have hard memories and hard moments in life. Whereas we think that's the most joyous time of the year. Everyone loves Christmas, or everyone loves their birthday. But when you have grown up or have experienced certain traumas in your life regarding those days are anguish. Right. Those days are anguish, and they don't like to relive them. They don't even want to talk about them.
Right. You're right. Like Mother's Day was a trigger for me when I was younger, but I remember because my mother passed. Mother's Day, Easter, certain holidays. So those were triggers. I did not celebrate. And you could not discuss her. So, again, that's mental illness in the Black community. And this is like in the 90s where you didn't know how to label it. So now you're labeling it. Now you have medications out there for the kids. Now you have additional outlets like the 2021 Mental Health Summit that's going to help the kids and the adults. So with that, what can people or participants expect once they come out there? Not just the children, but just the community.
You're going to, if I could put it in a nutshell, you're going to be in a place where you can learn. Because a lot of times we fail because of the lack of knowledge that we have.
That's right.
And so here you're going to be able to engage with experts in the field. And so you're going to have people who have been in the industry for a very, very long time who are going to be able to address those questions, who are going to be able to put some really good information out there that we have often swept under the rug as African Americans. We have to be cognizant of our own mental health and the mental health of those around us. And so knowledge really is power. Right. It really is. And to be able to do that in people who speak our language. When I say speak our language, you know what I mean when I say speak our language. Yes. We can do certain things, but then there are certain shared experiences that we are familiar with that's going to be able to help us to be able to engage. Right. And sometimes when you have someone who can self-identify or who can identify with you, it makes that story, it makes that information a little more palatable. And so they're going to be able to share it in a way that you're going to be able to understand. Because it's one thing to be able to receive information, it's another thing to be able to apply it. And so we have to get to the point where we are applying the information that we have. As a minister of the gospel, I could preach a sermon all the time, or I could just be up there talking, but it's not until you apply what you've heard that makes the sermon or makes the word come to life, because you have to be able to apply it. The word says not only be hearers of the word, but doers of the word as well. And so we have to get to the point where we are learning and doing after we receive the knowledge. And so at the conference, you're going to be able to listen to various key experts in various areas regarding African Americans and mental health. And so it's going to be a rich experience. It's going to be a lively experience. And it's going to be something that you're going to be able to walk away with a ton of information and be able to put more tools in your toolkit to be able to help someone else. Because we have to be able to help someone else along the way. It's not just for us to be able to be a glutton and to get fat off of information. It's for us to be able to share it. Because it's when we share it that we are in power. And when we're in power, we can do better and also be better.
That's right. Now, my question is, sometimes when we talk about mental health, it's from a technical standpoint. How will you present this information to the public where you're educating them while making it a dynamic and fun engagement?
Again, I'm going to be speaking from a youth perspective. I love to be able to have fun. Yes, they will be able to, we're going to talk about some subject matters, but I want it to be applicable and applicable to them.
Right.
And so I want them to be able to understand it. You know, you can have a PhD or no D, but I want you to be able to understand what I'm talking about. We want the children, more importantly, to be able to walk away feeling empowered, feeling like someone heard them. Because a lot of times when you have people who don't feel like their questions have been heard, or don't feel like this is a safe place to be able to ask a question, they're going to continue to walk around unknowledgeable about, the various areas where they seriously may need some assistance. Right. And so I want them to be able to know that is going to be a safe place. We're going to have some fun. We are going to talk about all those things that they really need to be able to share. And so I want them to be able to come. I want them to be able to know that we're going to have a good time, but I also want them to walk away knowing that their questions have been answered.
Why do you think mental health in Black communities, that's such a taboo topic?
It's an area that we have failed to understand. Mm-hmm. Many times and for years, people have just never talked about it. Mm-hmm. I think we've never talked about it because we've never been able to have the luxury of going to the doctor and getting a physical diagnosis.
Right.
Because going to the doctor for a mental illness, that costs money.
That's right.
Now we will go to the doctor for our health. We will go to the doctor for our teeth. We'll go to the doctor for our foot. But no one ever really talks about going to the doctor to see about our minds or our spirits.
Right.
And so we need to be able to take the stigma off of going to see a counselor, therapist, psychiatrist, psychologist, or even a social worker to see about our mental health. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's one area that we've just really kind of swept under the rug. One, because we couldn't afford it, but secondly, it's been taboo. Mm-hmm. Because no one wants to be labeled as someone who suffers from a mental illness.
That's right.
Because we have so many people who think that it is a taboo area mm-hmm. to talk about. We have so many people that feel like they will be belittled if they were to disclose they had a mental illness, because even now, currently, many people in the African American community, you will never hear them say they suffer from a mental illness because of the backlash or the reception that they might receive.
Right.
But if you go to their medicine cabinets, if you were to look at some of their prescription drugs, they're on antidepressants, they're on anti-anxiety medication, they are on so many different medications, but we never talk about it.
Right.
We never talk about needing to take some time off to get our mental health together. But we will do so many other things to self-medicate. We're going to drink something, we're going to smoke something, we're going to do so many other things to self-medicate that it is going to be one of those items where that will be celebrated, but we will never deal with the root, and that's the mental illness.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely correct. So then what is for the kids, because you're with the youth, right?
Mm-hmm.
One great coping mechanism that they can use to help against anger?
One of the best and even the most inexpensive things they can do
mm-hmm.
is run.
Running
and getting outside, getting some fresh air. It releases those endorphins. It releases some of that anxiety. It releases all those things that the body has tensed up with to be able to let go of. Mm-hmm. Many kids nowadays, they're stuck so much behind a tablet, a mm-hmm. phone, or a laptop, and they're stuck to PlayStation or any other gaming system in their house, and they never go outside. Mm-hmm. We grew up in a generation where you go outside,
right?
And you come in when the street lights come on.
Hello.
And so that is what we did, because we were supposed to go outside and get rid of all that pent up energy. Whereas these kids, they rarely go outside, mm-hmm. But they need to be able to release some of that energy. If they aren't athletic, another easy way and another cheap way is to be able to write it down.
That's right.
Write a journal. Being able to put your thoughts on paper. It doesn't necessarily have to be a diary, because some people are concerned that their thoughts might get out. But one of the things that I've suggested is, what are some prayers you like? What are some prayers you like to answer? Mm-hmm. Or what is one thing before you go to bed that you want to thank God for? or or where are ways that that you feel blessed for the day, because you're ending your night on a positive note rather than worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow, or what you're not going to be able to sleep about that night.
Right.
And so being able to put some positive reinforcements in there that are economic, that are not going to do you any harm, but it's going to do you a whole world of good. And so being able to do something productive, being able to let your mind be free for just a little while, that's probably one of the best mental health things that they could ever do, even as a young person. Just allow your mind to be able to relax. They are so inundated with things of today that they can't even think about, the next day, because they're worried about being stuck on today. How many likes did I get on Instagram? How many likes did I get on this? Or how many of this? How many of that? Or I need to be able to post. I want to do the crate challenge.
Oh, please, Lord, don't.
Right, exactly. And so they're so interested in being popular so they can be liked, so they can be affirmed.
Right.
Rather than making sure they have their own mental health wellness. But then again, you have 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70-year-olds still chasing that same dream of needing and wanting to be affirmed.
Right. Instead of self-love and affirming yourself, which people can't, that's a whole nother conversation.
It is.
Mental health, where you can affirm yourself and love yourself, but that doesn't mean someone is going to see you in that same light, and then there goes the bullying. So it's a repeat cycle. So would you say
it is definitely a repeat cycle? It's something that we need to do as adults, because we typically haven't done that.
Right.
And I tell people all the time, why give someone the responsibility of making you happy?
That's right.
When you should be happy yourself. You should learn how to make yourself happy rather than someone needing to make you happy.
That's
if
right.
you can't be happy about yourself and for yourself, you need to work on yourself, because the first person that you need to love when you look in the mirror is you.
That's right. And I love me. I love me. Okay. So some people might call it narcissism, but people will give that a label too. She's narcissistic. No, I just love me. Okay. But
hey, there's a big difference between being a narcissist and loving yourself.
Right.
There's a world of difference in between that.
That's right, because you still have that affection to love other people, to show compassion to other people, whereas a narcissist, not so much. So I'm me. I love me, y'all. Okay. So
I love it. I love that you love you. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yes. So now with the Mental Health Summit, are you selling tickets, or is it an organization? Like, how were you ultimately part of it, and how were you able to get it at UNC Charlotte? That's a huge accomplishment.
Well, again, I was asked by a friend of a colleague, and I was invited to be able to participate because they wanted to be able to engage our youth. And so they knew that I had done some work with youth and youth ministry, and they knew I had a marketing and PR background. And so they was like, wow, this guy might be the guy.
Right.
And so to be able to do that, we talked, and I worked with Living Waters Ministry. And so Joan, she asked me to see if I would be interested. And I told her absolutely, because I do have a passion for youth. I do have a passion for mental health and making sure that they are well. We have so many kids that just aren't well, and they don't know what to do. And, everything can't be solved in a pill.
Right.
You can't continue to medicate these children. Some people, they need their levels maintained by medication, but some kids, they just need to be able to learn how to be kids and to learn how to be able to focus and refocus their energies and their attentions so they can be productive children, so they can be successful students, so they can be the best child they can be, but still be a child.
That's right.
They're just so in a rush to grow up, that being that there is such a rush to grow up, they are escaping their childhood, and they need to be children as long as they can.
Right. Preach it to the choir. Okay. as someone who's raised multiple children, you have generations teaching the younger generation. Again, it's the cycle. So addressing those issues, and that's what you're doing. And kudos to you for even seeing a need in solving the problem, or at least trying to, making an honest effort.
Yeah. I don't seek to solve every problem, but if I can solve just one, maybe two, or even 3 or 5, I've done my job.
Right.
It, as the old African proverb says, it takes a village. It takes each and every one of us. If I do my part, you do your part, we're all doing our part, the village is going to be helped.
Thanks. Okay. So last question. Aren't you
Sure.
happy? Tell people where they can follow you and just stay up to the minute with your youth ministry. Do you have any books coming out? Before this question, tell people how they can take part in the book, like The Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health.
So that is a book by our plenary speaker. She is going to be one of the keynote speakers for the conference. Her book is available online. So we're looking forward to having her speak. And so that book is available on Amazon and any other book outlets that are out there. So get the book. Rita Walker. Yeah, so it's going to be phenomenal. And then as far as I'm concerned, you can reach me. I'm a youth and children's pastor at First Baptist Church West in Charlotte. That web address is www.fbcwest.org, or you can email me at jburton, BURTON, @fbcwest.org.
And we got it. So thank you so much. It was an honor.
Thank you so very much for having me. And I would love to be able to continue this conversation with you. So thank you, and thank you.
Hopefully Jay Hill will bring you back and we can keep it moving, because even with the pandemic, we're going into the third phase of this. What are we in, third or fourth phase of this? I want to touch bases again in winter just to see what your suggestions are, especially with the kids. Might be facing another shutdown, we don't know, but coping mechanisms and things like that.
Yeah, they're going to have, I'm not speaking anything into existence. I want them to be able to go to school as long as they can, because they need the social outlet. The parents need the outlet, and so do the children.
Facts.
When the pandemic first happened and they had to go to school via Zoom, the kids needed the outlet just as much as the parents.
That's right.
And so everyone needs an outlet. Everyone needs to be able to have their own space. And so when a parent goes to work and a child goes to school, it creates separation because they need their own separate spaces. But being sequestered in a house all day, every day, it's bad for your mental health.
Listen, and I'm not a teacher. Like reading, writing, that's where I come in. Math.
Where's the math?
Math, ever, never, ever. Never, ever. I was so pleased when my nephew came to me last night needing help with geometry, and I'm like, oh, so that was the only thing I actually did well in is geometry. Everything else, nah. So I could help him with that.
That's where the rails came off for me, was in geometry.
Geometry.
Oh my goodness. I could do algebra, but when geometry happened, and those proofs were the bane of my existence.
Oh my God. See, Pythagorean and theorem, mean, median, and mode, all of that. Like, I remember when I went back to school to get my diploma, I sucked in algebra, and my teacher couldn't understand how I couldn't do algebra, but I could do geometry. It just didn't make sense to her. So it is what it is.
Hey, some people are gifted in that area. That is one area I'm not gifted in. If you need a PR plan or a marketing campaign or any of those kind of things, you holler at me. But that geometry, oh my God. I remember like it was yesterday. That was a trauma.
Oh my gosh. No, it wasn't that bad. Now, trig is a trauma. Trig.
Oh, I stopped at algebra 2.
That algebra is a monster because I'm still trying to figure out why would I need this to grow to do my grocery shopping. It's just not. I'm not building houses. Why would I need this? Okay.
That it's that critical. It's that critical thinking. That's all.
Right.
That's all. That's all it was creating was that critical thinking. But
I'm
outside of
definitely.
that, you know, you have become a very successful young lady. So at some point, I'm sure you may have needed to use that math, but you
No.
also became.
No.
but the critical thinking allowed you. But the algebra allowed you to become a very critical thinker. And so being it's allowed you to be a very critical thinker, you're good.
No. Look, I rebuke
I
that.
tried.
Okay.
I tried.
No, so writing was always my number one. Like when I went back to school, I scored higher in reading and writing than any other scorer. Like when I went back to school to get my diploma, I failed in math and had to go all the way back and start from standard math and work my way up the ladder. And I stayed in school for like 2 extra years just because I couldn't catch on to math.
Oh,
So
wow.
no, I did not miss any scores in reading and writing. That's how proficient I was in that matter. So no, it will never be. It won't be. It's not. And that's just where we are. And we're good, okay?
But still, it's allowed you to be well-rounded
Yes.
for you to be able to help your nephew in that geometry.
Right. Oh, my ears
You,
perked up.
for me, you're going to get a tutor because I don't know. I'm just being honest. You're going to get a tutor because that's beyond my pay grade.
Listen, we're going to YouTube University for the rest of it. I can tell you that right now.
And even the younger ones, these squares and things, and not, I'm like, what is that?
Listen,
What is that?
division is not even division anymore. I don't know how old you are, but division and just everything is just so different now. So I'm like, nah, we're going to YouTube University and we're going to knock that out and we're good. It's just too much. It's just too much. I digress. Anyway, so thank you so much.
You are very welcome. You are very welcome. I hope that your listeners and viewers were able to glean something from this conversation.
Sure.
And I hope that they'll be able to join us for the conference. It's going to be a wonderful conference with some phenomenal speakers, and I hope that they will be able to attend. But more importantly, I hope for selfish reasons that their youth will be able to attend because it's going to be a very fruitful time.